Okay, can I win now?
Yes.
Okay, let's go fix this.
Audio Jungle.
This is CNN Special Report with John King. Today is December 24th, 2000, on this beautiful Sunday. Okay, over the last week, our presidential election has been decided by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has named George W. Bush our next president by deciding how the votes were to be counted in Florida. Okay, a lot of bad stuff and non-democratic stuff has been going on in Florida. Okay, Secretary Katherine Harris, has belligerently obstructed the democratic process in Florida by refusing to give the correct amount of time to recount the ballots. There are two types of ballots, Optiscan and the punch card ballots. Okay, the punch card ballots is why she needs to give more time, because dimple chads and hang chads are hard to count, especially when you have the Bush campaign forcing it to take as long as possible by also obstructing democracy. So what would happen is during the recount, in counties such as Miami-Dade, Volusia County, Palm Beach County, what happens is there's multiple people in the voting centers. They go through each punch card ballot, and on each side of them is a Bush and a Gore campaign spokesman, and they decide whether they agree with the person counting the vote, and if they disagree, then they bring it up to a supervising council, which has around 5 people on it, 5 or 7 sometimes, and they decide. And why the Bush campaign taking everyone to them, causing much more time, because then you only have one person instead of the 10, 20, or sometimes 30 people working at each voting center, causing it to take multiple weeks if they did it like this. Now of course Katherine Harris only gave 6 days, so that forced it to go beyond the 6 days, and they were not given that amount of time. So the Gore campaign then filed with the Florida State Supreme Court to get a recount. This recount only happened, it was only for counties Miami-Dade, Volusia, Palm Beach, and there was another county. 1 second, please. Broward County. Those are the 4 counties that was issued the recount. So now they gave them 10 days to count those 4 counties. This was more probable, but because of things that the Bush campaign did, such as in the Miami-Dade County in one of the voting centers, now that the severity of the problem in Florida was realized, they started moving these into very closed door rooms where they did the recount in order to not have the public come in and cause chaos and make it harder for them to recount the votes, because it needed to be done efficiently in order to finish in those 10 days. But in Miami-Dade, at one of the recount centers, the public got into the closed door room because the Bush campaign sent everyone down, They sent their people just to cause problems, And they all got in there, and the whole county wasn't recounted because of this problem, Now, one of the difficult problems for the Bush campaign was, as governor of Texas, George W. Bush signed into law that dimple chads shall be counted, and of course during this election he did not want those to be counted, so it was a bungle for the campaign, and it really made him look bad, because one of the things when you run for the presidency, your record is very much looked at, and it just made him look really bad, and you don't want to put someone into the office of the presidency that can't even follow through on one law that they passed. This wasn't a plan, this was just a law that said dimple chads shall be counted, along with a couple other things, but it was very disappointing, and I think the public should be outraged at the governor that he obstructed the democratic process like this. Also, I want to talk about one of the other things that Katherine Harris did that I think she should be put in jail for, is she paid database technology $1.3 million of Florida taxpayer money to bring up a convicts list of people who cannot vote, because they are convicted felons. She had approximately 697 people added to that list that were perfectly abiding, law-abiding citizens. Okay. Now, in a Florida election where .03 is the difference between the two candidates, that's 1,437 votes. Okay, this 697 is like half of that almost, and I think that's a huge problem, and it shows the corrupt in the Florida government. Okay, and that needs to be looked at. Now, one of the reasons why in those 4 counties that were recounted by the Florida State Supreme Court did not count was because they were all, in Miami-Dade, they were counting dimple chads and they were counting hanging chads. In Volusia, they were only counting hanging chads, not dimple chads. Okay, so that was one of the problems when the Supreme Court overviewed it after the deadline wasn't met on the 10-day recount. The Supreme Court reviewed it and decided that was one of the problems. And so that's one of the reasons how they were able to give the election to Bush and say that no, these recounts were not done correctly. They were not done up to the same standard. That was one of the Supreme Court's reasons for saying that the original election results should count, even though there was obvious proof that there was obstruction of the democratic process and that the dimple chads did show that this person wanted to vote for them. Not to mention the issue with Pat Buchanan getting more votes in Florida than he should have because the old people were confused by the style of the ballot. Okay, but overall, because the Supreme Court overruled the Florida State Supreme Court, the election is given to Bush. Now, let's just say that on the Supreme Court there wasn't a Republican majority, the election would have been given to Al Gore and the recount would have happened. Okay, so I think what you really want to pay attention to, now that this has already happened and there's nothing you can do about it, I think that we as an American people need to decide that we are done with this corruption. We are done with dealing with corrupt people trying to say what we want, okay, without getting our views and our votes counted. Our basic right to vote has been obstructed. There should be riots in the streets. The system has failed. The system is fraudulent. And we just allowed this man to be elected to the presidency when he did not have the votes. Let that sink into you. Thank you. This has been Special Report with John King.
Okay. This is gonna. Alright, everyone needs to take a deep breath.
I was doing so well too, Jamie. You screwed it up.
How did I screw it up? You said Palm Beach, California.
Yeah, but before that you said Pat Toby, which you are!
But I've only had one mistake. That's like. You've had like 400% more mistakes than that.
You ready, Michael?
Yep. You're like Bill O'Reilly.
And we're back. Mike, you just gave me the card. You're like Bill O'Reilly. You can't leave that. Okay? No one here rapes women and then covers it up with money from Roger Ailes. This is CNN.